I'll try to have a roundtable discussion, a little bit more interactive. And of course, if any question you can ask to me the question or raise your hand in order to make us interactive as possible. We don't have too much time, then I will start immediately. I will ask, I don't know who wants to start from you. Then we talk about aviation being a catalyst of development of the country. Then how can aviation can contribute to that? I don't know.
Thank you, Kostas. Thank you for the invitation to this beautiful panel in this lovely evening. You just said it. It's the extra capacity, it's the addition of flights, it's the performance, it's the image of the country, and after all, it is the people. So we do see that since 2019 and going into 2023 now, there is a clear contribution of the tourism industry overall and specifically of the aviation sector by the development, inevitably, I would say, also of Sky Express in Greece to allow for the restoration of traffic and inbound tourism into the islands and to Greece mainland. This, at the very end, contributes importantly to the growth of the economy and to support not just the direct employment which is associated to tourism, but also indirectly allowing for a lot of investments to take place in the ecosystem which surrounds the tourism industry.
Nico, you come from a country that also is linked with Greece. There is flights to leisure to Greece, but also Romania have a really great tourist product. Then, from your perspective, being in the aviation for how long? So long. How important is aviation? Okay.
So, discussing this question, I can make a little bit subjective because this is my field. I think aviation field is one of the most important business in every country which have it. Because any other business is only few hours far away from our needs. Also with aviation we help tourists, the tourism field. So before we had this meeting, I just discussed with the general manager of Sky Express, and he will start to fly from Romania. He will start to bring here Romanian citizens to spend their holidays. This means we'll take money from our citizens with fees and taxes paid
Careful
to
when you say take money because it might be sounds.
And also, this is a win-win business because also Greece will win with our citizens here. Also, having aviation and having a growth of aviation fields, this means many jobs opened.
Vim, the nature of your business is connect the world. SkyTeam is number 2 in the world, was awarded recently in Montreal. Therefore, you connect the world. Then, and Tarom is one of your members. And how important is as a catalyst aviation to a local economy?
Yeah, I think for every economy, but certainly the economy of Greece, air transport is key enabler. And if you look at indeed what happened during the last few years, you see also from a SkyTeam perspective, we are representing 19 carriers. The newest one is Virgin Atlantic, which is a UK carrier. But if you look at in total the number of visitors per week in 2022, which was 1 million visitors per week, which is very coming close to the same level of 2019, which was 33 million. And taking into account that 33 million passengers traveling to Greece is 3 times the population of Greece. And of course, as SkyTeam is an alliance, we try to to enable via direct flights or via one-stop flights with 8 carriers flying direct into Greece. 230 flights a week. In total, you have much more flights coming in. But SkyTeam, of course, trying their utmost to get people to Greece. But you see here, and that's maybe one of the topics I also want to address, you see enormous peak in the summer, and in the winter it is pretty slowing down. If you look at, for instance, what SkyTeam is doing in the summer is about 230 flights a week, also from cities in the US, direct flights from Boston, New York, JFK, and Atlanta. But in the winter, it's a very seasonal product, and you see it also in Italy, but you see it less in Spain, for instance, one of the other Mediterranean country, where you see more or less a steady network from the traditional carriers. I'm not talking so much about the charters, during the total year. And in Greece, you see a very steep drop. And that's also, I mean, that's influential for the economy of Greece as well. So that's like what I like to state, and maybe also have a kind of discussion on why it is and where we can contribute as an alliance in that respect. Yeah,
and then you all hear people are from the tourism industry, and then you know that's what Kelly and Mr. Jomoko started, is about destinations Greece, you know, and you couldn't understand what it was from the ministry earlier, and was saying that it's not just the sea and sun. Then it's more than that. Then there is, you can explore a lot of things in Greece. That is, you know, we have antiquities, we have Olympic games coming from Greece. Then there is a lot of opportunities. Then might be, you know, working with. Well, you might need a local partner here. I don't know, you know, you have Sky Express that is doing a great job here in Greece. Then might helps to increase the presence of SkyTeam here. Andrea. Again, the same question. Aviation play critical. You have many hats, as I already said. Then you had made a lot of research, and you follow up everything, both the aviation and tourism. Then,
thank you, Kostas. And I would certainly agree with all that has been already said. And essentially, we keep saying that demand for transport is of derived nature. Except for you, very few people fly for the sake of flying. Most people fly to go somewhere and do something, and tourism is a very obvious activity, whether it's business, leisure, visiting friends and relatives, and so on. Back in the early 1980s, about 35% of international tourists were flying by air. This percentage now is over 50%, and if we talk about countries like Greece, that's over 75%. At the same time, it's very important to realize that transport is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for economic development. So that means that it facilitates accessibility, it reduces transport costs, broadens the outlook of people, but on the other hand, we should be very careful with being realistic in terms of infrastructure and in terms of our growth plans. Just having the capacity there is not sufficient to generate a development. You may have a marvelous airport, you may have hundreds of aircraft, that's not sufficient to generate tourism. So what is the real challenge here is to match demand and supply and make sure that we have an integrated plan forwards.
Nico, last but not least, from your perspective, what's your comments?
In general, I believe that tourism is the major pillar of the Greek economy, at least. It has helped significantly to overcome the recession since 2010, the financial crisis that our country went over. In the past 13 years, I believe we have more than doubled the number of tourists, the incoming tourists in Greece. There were about 15 million, now we're over the numbers that you just stated before. As far as we can see, 2023 will be an even better year than last year, and a better year even than 2019. And this is not only about more flights, it's not only about more rooms being, let's say, in hotels, etc. It's also about the Greek infrastructure. The whole country is more development and more money are put in the economy, and this is very important even for people that have nothing to do with tourism, the people that are living in the country, so they have better infrastructure, better streets, better hospitals. It should, at least they should. I'm not sure about the last one, that it's already a fact, but it will be, all things are carried tourism is especially in countries like ours that are not so, let's say, developed financially, economically developed. Tourism plays even a more major role. There are also countries that, probably Romania is one of them, that can even put more effort in tourism, and they can invest more and increase GDP further through the tourism sector. For sure, we must all admit that the aviation industry has played a major role in Greece in the past 10, 15 years. We have two great airlines at the moment, financially stable, growing, and bringing more and more flights in, which is, of course, this is the major, let's say, way that tourists come to Greece. And this is very, very significant. If you want to invest in tourism and if you want to have as a first, let's say, most significant pillar of your economy, this sector, you need good and stable airline carriers.
Thank you, Nikos. Move to a more general question, not focused on Greece, but general. How important is, and I start with you, Wim, how important is air transport for global connectivity and tourism growth? You know, of course, about connectivity, we saw during the COVID times that without aviation, we couldn't transport vaccines, we couldn't transport essentials for health essentials for what was happening, then connected even repatriation flights around that. But okay, we finished with COVID and we move forward. And looks that we will get to the pre-pandemic level this year in the optimum scenario. And then what do you believe it's, how important is regarding the global connectivity?
Yeah, I think global connectivity is essential for certainly countries like Greece. But most of the other countries as well, to be very honest. I read somewhere that in Greece you had the third country worldwide on Earth with how do you call it? Visited with visitors. So that's enormous. I don't know if it's true, but I read it somewhere. I really thought, my goodness, this is big. I mean, connectivity is not only for our alliance, SkyTeam, but also for the other alliances. Is I think the key. The connectivity meaning that with one stop. Wherever in the world, even now also in China, because don't forget about China. China is coming up again and has huge potential for tourism, also to Greece. But if you look at the connectivity, again, not only from SkyTeam, but also from Star Alliance or One World or many other airlines, connectivity is key, meaning via one hub. We have different hubs in SkyTeam. We have Amsterdam, Schiphol Airport, we have Charles de Gaulle, we have Rome, we have London Heathrow now with Virgin, but also in the US with Atlanta and JFK. You connect the world. And if you have those alliances on board, and again, the biggest alliance for you anyway is Star Alliance, of course, logical. But also you see One World and the other ones are really picking up. And that means that the connectivity is essential. And at the same moment, it is also, how do you call it, you have to make sure that as a country you have to be on the map. Because you're competing also with other countries. And I think also, if I may, then I think there are two really, I think, untouched potentials yet. I think Greece is known in the world as the biggest shipping economy as such. Where we in SkyTeam, we have with IAS Global a very interesting product, also connecting people from Japan, people from Korea, people from the East, as well to China, both ways. So that is really something where you also think as a Greek economy you have to look at. And the other one is what we call global meetings. That is the MICE segment, the meetings, incentives, congresses and events. And I think in Europe, last year, you were #1 in this MICE segment, meaning people love to come to Greece, not only for business, but also for leisure. That means we call it now, in SkyTeam, we call it bleisure, because people are connecting or are coming to Greece as well, again, being the #1 in the MICE segment, in Europe anyway, trying to take a few days, 3-4 days for a congress or for an event or for an incentive, and then have a little bit more days for leisure.
For fun. Okay, thank you. Before I ask my other panelists, is there any question from the audience? Okay, then I continue. Then, Nico, global connectivity, Romania, how is it important for you as a country, as a destination?
It's also very important for us, but being in SkyTeam with our national company, we are linked to world through Amsterdam or through Charles de Gaulle. In my opinion, Europe is the biggest hub from the world, because Europe connects Asia with North America and or Europe. If you want to travel from China to United States, you should stop over in Europe.
Okay, Yorgo, your airline from a domestic airline before COVID became really an important player in Europe, competing with Aegean, and with a huge expansion, especially in Europe. But you have also the biggest routes of PSO, public service obligation in Greece, and also connecting what is essential for Greece even in wintertime about the societies in the islands. And
Absolutely.
how aviation helped the success story of Greece, and from your perspective as Sky Express?
I think I will need to link also to connectivity, as we said. We start from the fact that there is a population, not just in Europe, but beyond Europe, which wants to live in a different way. And the pandemic showed that there are options to work from wherever you are and at the same time be productive, but enjoying also your life. So the rise, let's say, of Sky Express through the pandemic, with the expansion of the fleet going further from the ATRs into the Airbus world, has effectively given also the opportunity for people who wanted to travel to Greece, to connect with Greece, to go and to take this opportunity and start living in a different way. We read that Greece is the #1 destination for nomads, digital nomads. So this has a secondary impact, which then becomes primary, to smaller communities, to the smaller islands, and effectively to the islands where these PSO routes are being served. So we are very happy that we continue to offer this service, this public service to these smaller communities, other than supporting these communities for other purposes, like for medical reasons or for being able to enjoy their life in the island. I focus more on the islands during winter time, which again then has another impact which comes onto the European level, the fact that these islands are permanently inhabited, that Greece being the borderline of Europe, to be able to confront in a more stable manner any challenges that may arise.
Nico, what are your expectations for 2023? Are you optimistic?
If you're talking about Greek tourism, yes, I am very optimistic. I'm very optimistic about the figures that we're going to see at the end of the year. However, I'm not as optimistic as probably we were all last year, meaning about how the Greek economy and the Greek tourism sector will be able to serve all these incoming tourists. I'm not sure from the first, let's say, data we have, it seems that we're going to have some job positions that will not be filled during the tourism sector. This is not a Greek problem. This is a global problem. And very recently, I was in the Philippines, and they told me that even there they have the same problem. I thought that it would be greater in Europe, but they're experiencing exactly the same problem in aviation industry, in the tourism industry, in the ground handling businesses as well. So this is a global problem. It started from Europe and the US, but now it has gone all over the world. It seems that young people are not so much attracted anymore to work in the tourism sector as they used to be before the pandemic, and this has specific reasons. I mean, one can find out exactly why this has happened, and I believe the gap is also because of another reason. Because these 3 years that have passed, the two most difficult years in the global economy and the global aviation history, most probably, many people got retired or left their jobs in the tourism sector or in the aviation sector, most importantly, and these positions were not filled. Now all related companies in these industries are trying to attract experienced people or people that have relative training or education, and it seems that it's a very, very challenging yes. So the problem will not be the people that will want to travel to Greece or to other touristic destinations this summer. The problem is, are we going to be able to serve and support this increased demand?
Andrea, your expectation? Are you optimistic?
Yeah, I would certainly agree there is a big skills gap, especially with respect to vocational skills. We saw the so-called big resignation movement during COVID-19, and this seems to be very much the case, especially with people who are more into vocational skills rather than managerial skills. At the same time, we need to consider some headwinds at a global level, including possible escalation of the war in Ukraine or issues related to inflationary pressures, global economic recession, and so on. Other than that, I think it's quite important to restore connectivity, as you said earlier, and here we need to acknowledge that two main things to consider. One is connectivity related to hub and spoke, and also connectivity related to direct services. For example, I think it's quite important that we now have more direct services to China between Athens and Beijing, Shanghai. I very much hope that we will also see increased connectivity with India, which is now formally the most populous country in the world, and we recently saw all these massive aircraft orders by Air India and perhaps Indigo coming up. So in general, I think that ceteris paribus, as we say in economics, other things held equal, 2023 is going to be a good year, not as good in percentage growth terms as in 2022, where we also had the so-called revenge tourism phenomenon, when people wanted to take revenge out of what they experienced during COVID-19. So I think it's going to be a good year, but there are also some headwinds and other areas of concern to consider as well.
Wim, you have a new member, as you just mentioned, this month, Virgin. Then are you optimistic? More airlines joining?
I cannot say nothing about that. But yeah, Virgin is of course tremendously important, certainly for the joint venture across the Atlantic, but as well in Europe. It's a huge brand. With all due respect, it's not a huge airline, but it has a huge brand and a huge image. So that's tremendously important. And yeah, I think we expect also, due to the fact that SkyTeam, of course, very much looking at not only connectivity, but also at digital transformation for our customers to make our products more seamless. That whenever you fly with carrier A and then you move via hub on carrier B, all your information is known to the other carrier, which for customers is very important. And of course we have as well, if you have delays and those kind of things, also that is important in our digital, what we call the digital spine. So we are attractive to other carriers, and yes, we are talking with other carriers.
Good.
But I cannot say any names, but it's all of course. But for sure, I mean, the SkyTeam Alliance, but also other alliances also looking at new partners, so let's be honest.
That they add value. Well, I'll finish with the last question to all of you. I'll start with Nico. Which are the main challenges for the future? We heard a little bit about shortage of staff. We talked with Ricardo earlier about sustainability, environment, and what is your agenda in the CAA in Romania?
For me, the challenges are employees and digitalization process, because I start to digitalize many of our products, but a lot of employees are resistant to the changes. And the difficult part is not to make software to cut the duration of issuing, pilot license and to issue the certificate of airworthiness. The most difficult thing is to to make my employees to understand this kind of business is in their benefit.
George?
I would say there are two pillars where there could be challenges. One is purely operational, and it has to do with the way that especially the airports will react to staff shortages and infrastructure issues. So this is one challenge, especially when you have multiple flights during the day coming from international destinations and then moving on to domestic ones. So this is indeed a challenge. We faced this last year. It seems that there have been taken some steps to not go through this process again until some decisions are taken. And then the other one has to do with purely exogenous factors, and this cannot be controlled. It's beyond the control of the industry.
Nico?
I will have to agree with everyone. All points are very valid. I'd just like to add for Greece, not for aviation, the challenge is over-tourism. Is that probably in some places we have exceeded our capacity. This is something that we read about or we heard about from other countries in the previous years, and it was something that we could not understand actually. Why would one want less tourists, less money coming in, as you said before, in the country? And there are reasons for that. The reasons are that the infrastructure and the capacity has a limit. So I believe that we have started to experience something like that in some areas in Greece, in some specific smaller islands or some very, very touristic islands like Mykonos or Santorini. They have exceeded our capacity as a country, and we are seeing the same at some points in the year, at least at some specific periods of the season in Athens as well. We can see that there are no rooms available, or there is no. I mean, we were not so much prepared for this very big increase of tourism and this income of millions of people. So every country needs to find what is the balance, what is the equilibrium, where they want to stand, and what kind of product we can offer to our visitors. Because if you have more visitors than you can sustain, probably the product will fall as quality and will not be so attractive for the next, let's say, years to come. Thank you.
Wim?
I think our main challenge is next to indeed get enough labor people, because the Schiphol airport, but also the other airports around the world, we also have had big problems. Luckily, it's going better and better. But also about security. It's also about immigration. It's not only the airports or the airlines. But I think our main challenge is, of course, sustainability. Because as an airline, and I think that's recognizable for everyone, I think also Mr. Lambidas in the interview said to you as well, the SAF is of course still very minimum if you compare with the traditional fuel we have on board our aircrafts. But at the same moment, sustainability is more than only fuel. If you look at all the activities we tried to do, we did in SkyTeam last year the Sustainable Flight Challenge, where 16 carriers participated, 700 IDs. It was not about SAF, it was not about biofuel or any other new forms of fuel, but more about the weight on board. Simple things where you can save cost, where you can decrease the CO2 footprint. We did a challenge in the month of May, and in total with all the 700 IDs we got and the flights we had, it were medium haul, long haul flights, we produced 15% CO2 reduction, only that 1 month. And 15% has nothing to do with SAF again, but only with other activities. We're going to do the Sustainable Flight Challenge this year again in the month of May with 20 carriers. I think Taron will be, and were part last year, and for sure will be part of this year. And the nice thing is, and that is a collaboration you need between airports, between airlines, between authorities. You need to do it together. If you don't collaborate in that respect,
will not work.
In 2030 or 2035 we get nice From IATA, we got nice topics. You will never reach it. You cannot do as an airline on your own. You have to do it with your partners, and you have to collaborate.
Andrea, last word.
Thank you. Well, we have to ensure that destinations do not become victims of their own success in terms of over-tourism. At the same time, we need to make sure that destinations do not become victims of poor environmental planning. And I just wanted to highlight the issue of carbon leakage, which is very important, especially for Southern Europe. Lufthansa undertook a study recently showing that in a few years' time, a flight between Frankfurt and Heraklion will cost 80 euros more than a flight between Frankfurt and Antalya, which are very close anyway, Antalya and Heraklion, on roads as well. Reason being that there are all these environmental taxes imposed within intra-EU flights, but not outside of EU. So that would be not to the benefit of the environment, but would just be to a detriment of Southern European destinations. So we have to ensure that we have a level playing field and that we truly consider the very essence of sustainability beyond any possibilities of substitution. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to thank all the panelists and join applauding them for being here today. And Kelly, back to you.